Hello world. Welcome to episode 2 of the second season.
Sound like you're rapping it.
Yo! Welcome to
You just
episode 2 of the second series of the Catch Up podcast.
Hello.
With me, Josh McGregor, Head of Marketing at Salesfire, Elliot Lings, Head of Product at Salesfire.
Hello.
And Sean Rumsey.
And Sean Rumsey, a.k.a. Richard Himsworth, a.k.a. R. Diddy, a.k.a. the CEO, our Supreme Leader himself. Ooh. Could we get away with that?
Why
It's
not?
a real title.
He's our Supreme Leader.
He is.
Every morning we have a little sing-along.
That's why we all have the same haircuts. So the next 10 podcasts, we're focusing on product as a concept and going through how important it is to us, I suppose, as a company. We were meant to have an external guest on today. James, what was his surname, sorry? James Ogilvy. But he can't make it, unfortunately, which is a shame. But I think we're going to reschedule it, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Cool.
So you will be featuring.
Nice. So today what I wanted to look at was our product story, really, where we came from, how we went about doing it, how the product's evolved. 'Cause it's fair to say we've came quite away from our initial offering. 'Cause I still think people see us as an overlay platform, first and foremost. Why is mine like that?
Sorry, I've just I literally had 4 things went through my head to respond, and they all got blocked at the same
You
time.
only have to pick one.
You're like Mr. Burns when he gets every infection going and they can't make
They
their
all
way
can't
through.
go.
They're all trapped.
Yeah.
So what happened with my thought process there?
I'm just reading the question on this document. It's
You're
like,
not actually meant to read those questions, though.
It says, "How did overlays?"
how did all
You're not actually meant to read my prompt. I let you in just to appease your anxiety slightly. And now you're using it. You've weaponized it against me. Right.
Are we going back to the start?
I was doing all right there.
Sorry,
Then you both ruined me.
I get stressed. Is this getting cut and chopped and?
No, this is beautiful. This is going nowhere.
We've got outtakes now. It's going to be like Rush Hour 2.
Yeah. Like, superimpose a Korean uniform on it.
To be fair, we've got 2 angles, so we can cut a bit, can't we?
It's just when we're forgetting people's names that were meant to be on the podcast.
Who?
James Ogilvy something.
No,
You
that was fine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
See what I mean? Don't try and put me off.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Right, sorry. I'm getting distracted.
Yeah, so I think we're primarily seen as an overlay company in majority of people's eyes, I think.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a tough one at the minute as we're trying to push the new search product.
It's a tough one, but obviously it makes sense.
It does make
considering
sense.
That's 4 years ago. That's where we started.
And I think it's good that we've it's kind of been justified our movements into diversify into other things, because some of the companies that we've seen, I won't mention them, but they seem to have topped out. So the churn seems to have caught them up, and the last couple of years they've not really grown any.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it seems to be because they've just stuck to more or less being a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Whereas we've used the opportunity to get into clients relatively quickly through that kind of one-liner code integration that we've kind of worked so successfully, and then deployed more.
Yeah.
And looked wider and looked at other ways that we can help businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they tend to have just gone. I don't know whether it's the nature of, like, a lot of these other companies, they tend to be funded, and I think the funders come in and just say, right, just accelerate sales and forget about. I could be wrong here, but it seems to be forget about R&D, forget about taking time to kind of wait and develop. Like, it's a horrible analogy, but I always see it like a set of lungs. It's like every now and again you need to breathe in and take stock.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. Kind of fortunately through COVID, we'd naturally do it anyway, but definitely we've had that time where, in the time where it's been shameful to even attempt to sell something, we've had that opportunity to kind of really refocus in on what we're doing and just kind of breathe in and go again, I think.
I think for me, we sort of it ran its course, didn't it, quite naturally with the overlay stuff. So we got to the point where we couldn't move it forward strategically, and now it sort of became.
There's only
bit
so
of
many
a-
ideas. I think there's only so many ideas without getting into really deep integrations that just offer, small margins of difference,
Yeah, I think you've hit
performance
the nail
difference
on the
that
head
probably
there.
aren't really worthwhile.
It's if we could have kept going like flogging a dead horse, as it were, but you do get to the point where you regurgitate.
Don't think it's a dead horse.
Regurgitating things.
I don't,
No.
yeah.
Oh, that was super defensive. That. No, I mean,
No, I
like,
don't think. I don't think
I
that.
mean,
See, I've always, to be fair, as I tried to. Is this even a screw cap?
No, let me just clarify that, because I think you've got me misconstrued there.
Yeah.
I meant in regards to strategies. We see the other companies that we had. Yeah, you need to give me that.
Thanks.
The companies you refer to there, they get to a certain point with a strategy, and they'll just regurgitate it constantly. And they'll keep
Yes.
sort of refluffing things, and they'll just redesign stuff for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Whereas we took it at the point where we were sort of. The next step for that was to be a utility player for other products and to back other products up and connect them together. That was its logical next
Yes.
step in life.
I think we always had that plan. Well, very, very early on, we kind of looked at that as a solution. I was always worried because of pop-up blockers and things like that.
Yeah.
If they start getting stronger and more prevalent, then
It's still a concern, isn't it?
well, it's a concern in things like, I think there was we were about a year in, and we had a bit of a not so much a narrow miss, but it was an eye opener when I think some of the mobiles started to open things in through an app.
Yeah.
And so if you went to a website, if you clicked a link, it would bring it up in the app version.
Yeah.
On a mobile. I think it was on Android phones or certain Android phones. So it would bring up Chrome in an app, and then that doesn't support overlays at all. So our overlays are literally redundant in that. So I think we've had that wake up to kind of go, right, we need to move fairly quickly with it. And also, we didn't want to end up back where we started, where it was a struggle for a long time. We landed on a product with overlays that got us very quick success and very quick momentum as a business and growth. And we didn't want to be back in a position where it's just a case of that falls away again and we've got to go hunting for something else. We need to diversify really quickly.
I think the overlays, it incubated us, didn't it?
Yes.
We were focused on that initially, and obviously as we grew with that, it allowed us to,
I think
to
for
invest
me,
in
the
other areas as
value
well.
in it is as a support and as a bit of a sinew or something to the other products and to other sort of these plug and play CRO products is pretty invaluable as well. That's why when you thought I said flogging a dead horse there, I wanted to stop you before the face you give me there. But it literally, the value it has is tying stuff together. Like that messaging and aligning that messaging is, what's the word? Is it sort of what's the term? I'm trying to go with agile, but it's not the right one. What's something that's
Diversified.
not even diversified?
You mean basically more coverage?
Yeah.
What's in overlays?
I've literally lost. I've got the word in my head.
It's like one aspect, isn't it, of the whole CRO
Yeah.
strategy, I suppose.
Yeah. Let's go with that. That's fine. I thought you ruined my point there.
I don't know where you're going with it, Josh.
I was saying it's pretty handy. Basically, I was saying it's something that's pretty handy. It easily lends itself out to other things. It's not one set thing, basically.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean now. I can't think of the word either.
Do you know what I mean? There is a word for it.
Get the dictionary out.
While someone gets the thesaurus out.
Yeah, let me have a look.
Easy for me to say.
Young Jamie, hold on.
It's like a Kickstarter, isn't it?
Just going back to the competitors again though.
The
Competitors and the way that they tend to grow. Are you surprised how little they've diversified?
I think I am, yeah.
Because we look at some of these companies, especially some of the London-based companies, and we think they're really, they've got all these consultants behind them and things like that. They've got all these millions. Some of them, it's crazy the money that's been poured into them.
I know.
Like
It's crazy when we look at
Tens of
companies' house and
millions of
stuff.
pounds are being poured into some of these companies, and you look at them, and in terms of a sales, even sales decks and things like that, it's amateur hour.
I think a lot of those companies are set up more as agencies.
They seem to be set up
Yeah.
just to sell. It's a case of
Yeah.
it's a I think if you looked at the demographic of the staff that are there,
Yeah.
the by and large, I think they're just sales and marketing, and it's just basically rinse and repeat the same thing. I don't know who's there sitting there looking at ideas,
No.
because I always look at it and think, you know, you look at all these companies with all the, like I say, all the e-commerce consultants and things like that there, and I think we downplay what knowledge we've got. Like obviously we've come from a background where between us we've got tens of years of experience, I think, between us.
Yeah.
In e-commerce, we've had visibility on literally thousands of e-commerce sites, and I think we just we downplay ourselves. It's probably a northern thing. I think we downplay ourselves and our knowledge, when really a lot of the ideas and things that we're doing, we kind of look at others and think it feels obvious.
Yeah, it's true. And money wise, I know it's again a northern thing. We talk about this quite a bit, but overheads crazy different.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible, the difference.
Absolutely.
I think we were
crazy.
looking at our rent, basically, our office space. I mean, we've got 10,000 square feet now, and it's something like a tenth, 10% of the cost of some of the rivals down south.
And what's that over? What's yeah, I know.
And we're in the middle of Middlesbrough.
What's that over?
Right in the middle.
You? What's it buying you? It's buying you a nice office space. It's buying you.
It's buying you some prestige. I tell you what they do
Prestige.
well,
It's
though.
buying you
These
somewhere
companies,
nice to have partners in and things like that as well.
they do bring about some wonderful, colourful marketing language that ties in with their nice offices in various capital cities and things like that. And people do ride along with that whole brand. Like we're cynical. It's probably, again, our backgrounds. We're cynical enough to look at someone's presentation and just pick it to pieces and look at the real meaning behind what they're offering. Like there was we'll say, oh, we pop up on the site there. They'll say, we surface the information. You know, they come out with all these really descriptive, really almost alluring ways of describing something.
But I think you lose trust eventually, though.
I think you do.
Yeah, it only lasts so long. It does only last so long, I think, before. But then again, I think it lasts so long unless you're the. I guess it depends on the decision maker and the business owner. The business owner quite often will not sit there, and they won't see to that degree that we look at, or potentially even the e-commerce manager looks at. They just want to work with the company that works with whoever, EasyJet, that works with WH Smiths, whoever it might be.
Yeah.
They want to work with the company that works with the biggest name in their industry. And that's case closed for that director at that point. Yeah. It's usually the e-commerce manager. It's a little bit more, a little bit more savvy on things that will explore and get a better understanding. But you look at it, they just go for who works with the biggest labels out there.
I think the sort of the management level as well and the exec level, I've seen it in the past. People are starting to get savvy to fall in for the fluff and stuff like that. Because eventually, if you fall for that too many times, you're stung with a bit of kit that is not performing, and you've sort of been lured in by a nice bit of copy or a nice pitch.
I think so.
You're finding it very hard yourself to explain that ROI to your manager, your director, because you didn't quite fully understand what you're doing, but you were a bit dazzled by it at the time.
Well, a lot of our competitors, I think you're paying for the service, aren't you? And I think with what the products they offer, I think you're paying too much for it. I don't think in those cases you're always making a return on that. Whereas we've gone down more of a product route where, we push the product and we try and create something which scales better, so it's obviously more affordable.
Yeah, exactly, and it just breeds.
Yeah,
I think we were saying that this morning as well, that a lot of new technology, it's the same in any industry really. Like something starts really expensive, so your personal computer starts really expensive, and then it gets more compact and it gets more streamlined, and it gets faster and better, and the price comes down at the same time. The same thing happens, I think, when SaaS takes over in any industry now. Yeah. So whether it's in TV streaming or whatever it might be, like SaaS comes along and kills these agency models. Yeah. So that, again, a lot of our rivals really, they've set up as agencies, and then I think you touched on it before, they set up as agencies, and then they try to pivot into this more rinse and repeat SaaS kind of model. Yeah. And I think they get they're almost, it's not natural to them, or they're kind of stuck in the ways. And it doesn't translate well. Yeah. You see it across loads of industry. I mean, for example, search. So we're doing search. We do everything from free to probably the most expensive solutions, about £300 a month that we do. But everyone's getting the same quality of solution. You look at 5 years ago and the landscape 5 years ago. people are paying £15,000 a month, £20,000 a month for a search solution, and then gradually you're seeing the people opting for the cheaper options, where the R&D is going into one product that's then replicated instead of sitting there and kind of working into each individual client and each individual solution.
I think it's not something you can just pull over from an agency model as well. I think foundationally it's so different. I think it might look similar, but when you get in the nitty gritty of it, it's quite different.
Yeah.
Especially when you start looking at payment methods and you start looking at sort of business models and how values attributed and things like that.
I think how they're more distracted as well, aren't they? Like the way their business is formed, they'll have less resources in R&D and less probably product focused.
That's what I mean. Foundation
It's more account managed and service. Yeah, so it's quite difficult to pivot when you from that to from service to.
I mean, it's fair to say we sort of struggled with that a little bit, didn't we, at one point? I think knowledge-wise, I think it was a bit of a shock to the system for us to come across and realise what was different and what sort of needed realigning.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a crazy amount, but it was still a bit. There was still a few things where we were like, oh, that's different. And I realised what word I was looking for earlier. By the way, it was versatile. So I was basically saying that overlays are extremely versatile. They are the team player of our product suite, and I couldn't live without them.
Just from an objective perspective as well, from what you're saying, I think the fact that you mentioned about the overheads of these companies down in London and these the bigger cities and stuff like that down south, is that almost is the crux of their problem, because they have such massive overheads they can't gamble on innovation, because everything's got to work and got to hit exactly, and that's why they get stuck in the kind of cycle.
Well, it's a weird scenario, isn't it? Because you think of the capital cities overheads, and you'd think that's not the best place to launch a SaaS business or to run a SaaS business. But you look over in Silicon Valley, in California, and places where that's the hub of all these businesses. They don't sit there going, we need to be in a place with low overheads and things.
Yeah.
But I think the difference there is the money is just literally overridden all those things.
That's what I was about to say. That example we looked at before, I think people were getting flown into the Gulf, and that's how they were doing their outreach. It was fly 7 CEOs in All-Star weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
And almost the hospitality becomes the market fit at that point, because it's the same product essentially.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
much different. And
It's all that stuff around it.
The level of hospitality literally ends up being their market fit, if that makes sense.
I think that's the difference. You've got over in California, you've got I guess the home of all the SaaS businesses really. You've got just that overriding, just the amount of money is just overrides that kind of the fact that they might be paying $120,000, $150,000 for an entry level developer.
They've also scaled the businesses, haven't they, to a point where actually the amount of office space is probably quite small relative to the amount of customers that they serve.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So they're serving a lot of clients for the actual amount of employees that they've got.
Yeah.
Which is why they're able to keep the costs down. And
I suppose it's getting savvier with it's your marketing again, isn't it? Though it's where your major spend is. 'Cause at the minute, our onboarding is it's very personal. Like you're getting hold of someone, you're getting.
Yeah, it's
you're
getting
not
to
gonna
that
sign
point
up
where you
not know what you're doing if you.
You need to get to that point where your incoming inquiries are overcoming your outgoing.
Yeah, because
basically.
there's no way you sign up to our product and you. By the time you paid for it, you know it inside out pretty much, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
exactly.
Which is how we wanted it to be. But I suppose there's got to be a point where.
The weird thing to me is that, and the irony of it is that we look at the area we're in now, and I've said a few times that I think SaaS will take over in Middlesbrough because of where we're based and because of the likes of Intercom that have followed. Like obviously we've done it on a very small scale compared to them.
So far.
But initially how they got started with an outgoing like telesales team and prospecting and things, and there's a lot of traits that are kind of similar, and I do look at things and think it will take over. It'll get to the point where as we get momentum, or any SaaS business gets momentum, they can pay higher wages because they're not, profit is not, weirdly in SaaS, profit is not a thing. It's a case of reinvest whatever profit you got back into your staff, into growing the teams, growing the business. It's all got to go into growth and continue growth. And I think that'll gradually start taking over, so that you'll see the likes of agencies in and around this area.
Not really, does it, at this point?
I think all of I think it's the way things will go. And the irony is, I'm sitting there thinking there's us and there's not many others in this area, but really probably one of the original SaaS businesses is just up in Newcastle in Sage.
Yeah.
If you look at the way they've grown, like worldwide, they've done an incredible job. But why is no one's really? The agencies have continued to thrive to some extent in this region, but it's amazing how SaaS businesses that they haven't really.
It's almost been
caught fire.
It's like a culture, though,
That's
isn't
the
it?
thing. Yeah, it's more of a brand. It's more of a branding exercise now to be SaaS, SaaS, a business now.
I mean, a lot of these places like Silicon Valley, you've had companies which have scaled hugely, and that's if you're brought up in those areas, that's kind of what you're used to, aren't you? Whereas in this area, there's a lot of agencies.
Plenty of people have pitched software.
Yeah.
No services software before, but now they're pitching it as.
I find it strange because if you got a fashion retailer, they don't create bespoke clothes for everybody. They create one t-shirt.
Yeah,
and they produce
exactly.
it on a
Until you get
scale.
further up the.
Look,
that
probably happened a couple of hundred years ago. That probably happened.
Yeah, like 1800s.
And then the Industrial Revolution comes along, and everyone's there's mass
that's the
production of things.
And that's why I never quite understand.
The more you pay, the more bespoke it gets. It just works fashion same way. You're gonna pay $3,000, $4,000 for a top. There's only gonna be 5 of them exist.
You're seeing companies realigning now, though. You're definitely seeing some of the agencies. You're starting to see some of the ones very local to us. They're starting to have side products that's sideline projects that are kind of more SaaS based. Some of the agencies are starting to look at reoccurring revenue through kind of plugins or things like that they might offer to supplement their service based side of the industry. And then some of the e-commerce platforms in the region as well, they've definitely kind of refocused, taken a step back, a breath in, and kind of refocused on and realigning towards being more SaaS based kind of.
I think there's like a big confidence issue in them as well, though, because I think a lot of agencies feel they have to justify their service through time and what they offer to the client, and not actually what the client is getting out of it. Which is like with SaaS products, it's generally we create a product. Everybody can use it, but we've also got a lot of strategies which we've tried and tested.
Yeah.
Pick the ones which fit your business, and they'll likely, and you can hand them out to thousands of customers.
Yeah.
Whereas agencies are still stuck in this thing like, I must do all this week's worth of work for this one client.
I think it's because people are just naturally agencies. They're naturally kind of apologetic.
Yeah.
It's almost a case of, right, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Client, what do you want? And we'll jump to your beat.
Well, from closing that pitch, you're basically back foot from that point on.
Yeah, absolutely.
End of. As soon as that pitch is agreed to and signed off, you're on the back foot.
But it's amazing. Like, I'll go back to 10, 12 years ago, and it wasn't really a case of like being at Visualsoft. It wasn't really a case of them being not really a true SaaS business, but they had elements of that SaaS mentality. Where it was a case of we build code and then we'll reuse it, and that's what keeps the costs down. And that brought into the sales pitch. It was amazing how you could take someone's ideas. You'd have people come along with what seemed on the surface of it as 5 different ideas, but they're all wanting pretty much the same thing. Yeah. At the end of the day,
but they almost want to feel like it's theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's almost like they want to feel like it's their solution, but actually, what their solution that they're looking at is derived from, at the time, for example, looking at ASOS, looking at Next, looking at River Island or the like, and seeing what they're doing, and basically kind of copying them.
And there's only 5 or 6 of those industry leaders at the end of the day.
That's it. Like, so what you ended up, and this is how things have derived anyway. What's naturally happened is, and you could more or less, it got to the point years ago, and it's still the same now, where you could more or less design up someone's perfect site without them even seeing it. You could design up a very clean looking site, a black and white site that was very much promo led, and that's the way the whole industry derived that way, from being very detailed looking websites.
You get other benefits as well, don't you? So if you went to an agency and you said, right, I want you to build me an e-commerce platform, it's going to be driven by the client. Yeah. Which actually, while it sounds great, is not actually a good thing. Whereas if you go to Visualsoft or any other, e-commerce platform, they've got years of experience in building a platform, so they already know well ahead of you what you need in a platform, what you don't need,
Yeah.
and that saves you a lot of time and pain in itself.
Yeah, I
It
suppose
takes a while, I think, for that confidence to come
Yeah.
about. Visualsoft got ahead of the curve because their sales pitch was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
They had that bravado and that confidence to say, with the greatest of respect, Mr. Client, you're
Yeah.
wrong.
Mhm.
We've got all this knowledge. You put your trust in us, and we'll see you right with
I
it.
think it's fine as long as you can justify it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you find is a lot of the smaller companies, and it still happens now, a lot of the smaller companies trying to get established, they get run ragged by the client. The
Yeah.
client says jump. They say how high.
Yeah, it's the
And-
last thing they need at that stage of business as well.
And what
yeah.
happens is they end up in a position where
It's literally the
they're
last thing
bespoke
they
in
need.
everything. And if you're bespoke in your first 3 or 4 different clients that you've got, you're constant. You end up in a
It's difficult to shake,
it's an
isn't it?
everlasting loop that you end up in. I think that's where we've done well. I mean, we've never done a line of bespoke work for anyone. I don't think.
Well,
It's-
no, since
It's a case of if the product fit isn't right for someone, we've just kind of dutifully stepped to one side, and I guess we'll see them. We might see them in 18 months, 2 years time or something. If and when that product fits right.
yeah,
But it in terms of us kind of hurting ourselves by doing these extra bespoke requirements. And quite often it's to serve a very short-term, very limited need for a client.
Mhm.
It doesn't make sense. We can put our efforts into things that we know are going to make a lot more
I think
difference.
that's where the provided strategies come in, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because we know it works, we know what needs to work, we know how it should work, but then we also know how to make it work for this vertical, this vertical, this vertical, and that's where the education comes in.
It's also tricky for bespoke as well because, if you put a lot of time and effort into one particular client and you're charging them, roughly a similar amount, your other hundreds of clients are effectively suffering because of that one
Yeah.
particular client.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why should they? We want to provide value to everybody equally, as opposed to having favourites and stuff, which we don't want to do.
The thing
Yeah.
that's fortunate, I guess, in online retail, and whether it applies to other businesses, other industries, I should say, is they're all very similar.
Mhm.
So when we had Tim Johnson on the podcast I think it was a couple of months ago now, he said one of the most competitive areas is fashion. So everyone's racing to be number one in fashion, and all the technology is evolving with it. And then you've got an industry where it's not particularly evolved.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
You suddenly introduce that level of technology into that sector, it blows everyone away, blows everyone out the water. And we did that several times. I remember us doing that several times. Just almost an emerging market or industry sector, applying to it, and just things. We're seeing it now. Bizarrely, we're seeing it now in iGaming.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
You
that's
sit
true.
there and think iGaming, with all the money that they've got behind them, all the developers they've got. Speaking to a developer last night, they basically signed him and just put him in the reserves. Just sat there. He's sitting there at home now, working on his own freelance projects. It's just he's there for when they need him, basically.
Wow. And from what I've seen,
And the standard
standard of the
in
product
their industry
is
is-
like years
is
behind.
shocking
Yeah.
compared to the likes of fashion e-commerce. It's absolutely shocking.
It's crazy, isn't it? 'Cause it's the amount of money that's in it. If they're happy to stay at that level and no one's really pushing it, they might as well long it out for as much as they can.
I think
There's no point developing it quickly.
I think again, it's the case of, and I'm
There's
gonna
no if there's no competition.
well, I'm going to be insulting to the whole dev industry again now. But
The whole
I think
industry.
the whole
Wow.
all developers.
This is going to be
just
good.
insult them all in one fell swoop. But it's because I think a lot of the time, like in the gaming industry, they've got so much, and rightly so, they've got so much effort that they're putting in, and so much resource they're putting into anti-fraud. They're putting so much effort into basically
That's
the
true,
complexity
yeah.
of all
Mhm.
these odds and things that are changing every second. I mean, it's literally it's development miracles. I'm
Mhm.
giving him some plaudits here. But then they're missing the fundamentals. Like literally some of the fundamentals to do with like UX and and how people move through a site and when to interact with them. Things that we've seen on fashion sites, for example, for the past 10 years, and they're missing. Abandoned order systems, like I've seen a dozen sites in the last few months where they're just it's almost like new science to them.
Yeah, like it's not nowhere
incredible.
near mature as in for that vertical yet.
It's definitely a lot further behind, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of red tape in that industry as well, isn't there?
I guess
That's the thing.
I
The
guess
amount of
that's it.
competition's a lot lower.
You're constantly fighting an uphill battle to keep your tech within
Yeah.
a certain, like, when
There's
new
a lot of
legislation
laws
changes,
with-
things
yeah.
like
And
that.
as
You're
daft
probably
as it
spending so
sounds,
much time trying to future-proof that as well.
A lot of these, obviously they're based overseas for various tax reasons. But I think until recent years, I think a lot of the development's done overseas as well. And as daft as it sounds, like just developing things and researching and developing things over in the UK for a UK market puts you at a huge advantage within that market.
Yeah.
So if you're getting things developed over in Eastern Europe, for example, the developers have got no doubt are probably of at least the same caliber.
Yeah.
But it's that guidance and understanding. Like if you're in amongst it in the UK market, you'll understand it better. The product will be better, and the
commercial
market
context
fits.
is
Yeah,
different.
exactly.
Isn't it? It's completely different.
Yeah.
Well, not completely, but it's different enough to misalign certain aspects of it.
It's like us. We'll look at other companies in what we do in conversion, and like literally we've done it before. It sounds terrible. We'll look at where they're based. It's they're based in the US. They could be based anywhere in the world, and we'll just kind of shrug and go, "Oh, it's not UK." So they're not really a threat in terms of their
That's
their
true.
pitch and how they're going to connect to the UK public and understand, that UK retailer and how they think and what their needs are. There's going to be it's not going to correlate.
Well, for better or for worse, you're always looking for somewhere where the support is based close to you, aren't you?
I think we're at the advantage because the best platforms, I think the best platforms and the most advanced e-commerce industry probably in the world is probably the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quality-wise,
Europe
definitely.
is definitely a lot higher, isn't it?
I think some of the American SaaS businesses and SaaS platforms they are more advanced, but the retailers as a whole and
The
the
closed
technology at their
platforms specifically.
the technology at their fingertips
Yeah.
and the technology that they're employing is way beyond what you'll see in other countries.
Yeah, it's strange in America, isn't it? Like you've got obviously Apple and Google, pioneers of technology, but
Yeah.
then the e-commerce market probably lags behind us slightly in terms of what they're able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Well, we've looked at. I mean, they'll remain nameless, but there's a company that does similar to what we do over in the US, and technology-wise seems to be on a similar level.
What do you think that's down to?
Investment.
All right, okay.
Huge
literally
amounts of investment.
Yeah.
But that company and probably a story. That's where we kind of lack and naturally do. We're kind of so introvert in the UK. We don't really bang our chests and tell everyone our story and how great we are and things like that. We're a lot more insular.
Consumer behaviour affects it a lot, doesn't it, as well? I think America, don't they use checks a lot still, things like that, which in the UK is, very rare now.
Surprised you know what one is.
non-existent.
Yeah,
No, you don't know what a check is.
I do.
Each state is a country in itself, though, as well. And
And
each
they've
state
got
has
their own
Yeah,
laws
culturally
and
as well.
rules
Yeah, I
and-
suppose.
Culturally,
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
true. Yeah, that's true.
You're gonna look for different things to attract different markets, but also I think you mentioned it in a prior podcast as well. I think it's the physical real estate of land and the amount of competition. We're on this effectively tiny island, and you've got this a relatively huge population for the size of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hyper competitive in all aspects.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That is true.
You're trying to fight for your lion's share, for your market share a lot more. And I guess a lot of companies in the US, it's a different mentality.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
very
in
true.
the US it's a lot more your brand and your marketing are your driving force is a lot more than in the UK. UK
yeah.
you tend to have the best product.
I suppose delivery times in America as well, somewhere like the US, you're going such a distance to do it. It's crazy how you can still be in the same country and next day delivery is going to cost you the same as what over your worldwide or national, international delivery would cost you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all these little sort of cultural touchstones, isn't it, that you don't really think of.
Sounds
It adds up
crazy
to
the way
everything,
we're
really.
basically. It sounds like we're slagging off the US technologies here.
No,
Which is
we
not-
love the
which is
US.
we're not slagging off Apple and the likes of.
We love America.
I just think in our industry,
Yeehaw.
I don't think the standard is. Particularly, certainly not. The technologies are not stronger than what the UK technologies.
Could we
are.
name this clip "Rich lays down the gauntlet for US platforms to
I think
step
in
up"?
terms of I think in terms
I
of
think we got the
e-commerce,
title.
I think in terms of actual technology, America probably the best.
Oh, yeah, don't
Yeah.
doubt it.
You
They've
backtrack
got
But it's
a lot
interesting,
more money,
we
a lot
have-
more resources.
But even we have
to
certain
throw into
quirks.
things.
Like in the UK, we all still like drive manual cars. Like that's the norm, isn't it? Whereas like America, I think, and Germany are all automatic.
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
That's not to do with technology.
But it's like a cultural thing, though, isn't
it's
it?
a
Like
cultural
it's the
thing.
adoption of things, isn't it? Whereas
We
I
like
think,
gears.
but I think, yeah, but like I think a lot of the e-commerce in America is
like
driven
gears.
by
Man like gear.
a lot of a lot of the e-commerce is driven by the consumer. I think, like the fact we have Clara and stuff is quite so competitive because consumers want it. Like in the UK, we take on a lot more like credit and things. We're happy using credit cards and stuff like that. Whereas in other countries, they're either a bit further behind or further ahead of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that we've got the kind of postal networks, for example, already set up to build upon. I know there's a few Visualsoft, they're setting up in Dubai. They're getting quite well established there now, I think. But they've got to wait for the foundations to be in place because nobody has postcodes. And street address is apparently very vague, so that the whole postal network does not work like with us anywhere near the precision that it does over here.
Mm-hmm. I imagine high ticket items over there is a thing as well.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Like, and you don't want that going to a road, Dubai, do you?
A roundabout.
Exactly,
in Dubai.
London, England.
That'll probably be driven by consumer demand, I guess. As it gets more sprawling outwards, people are going to want more home delivery and things, and so consumers are going to want to be like, I want to have more delivered to my home.
Yeah, completely.
So the reason that I think postal systems have been pretty well, logistically, a lot of companies have sorted that technology out. It's just obviously in Dubai, the consumer's not necessarily ready for it yet, and probably now starting to demand it.
Well, it's that thing that we struggle with over here, where the high street, it's not built to be that experiential touch point, is it? Like it is over there. Like over there, going to the mall and stuff like that is a big deal. Like it's from what I've heard, what I've read. It's a trip, isn't it? It's like you're going there to shop and to show off that you're shopping and to be part of that whole scene, for lack of a better term.
I guess if you look at places like China as well, like obviously the technology is there for e-commerce and they use it a lot. Like everything's on, you buy things through like WeChat and things like that. Like because they never had the physical stores and their economy's boomed during a technology like era.
Yeah,
they've just jumped straight from they've kind of skipped a lot of the physical stores out and all the shopping malls and things and straight to like online
makes
retailing,
sense. Like
and
wealth distribution and stuff like that. You probably dig into it.
Yeah, I think even one of the guys saying like in Africa and stuff, they do a lot of money, transferring on mobile devices and things, as opposed to like don't even use much cash, because they've literally just jumped straight into the, they've skipped the big step out. Yeah,
edge of tech.
Yeah,
that's true.
So basically, saying everybody in the world needs overlays.
Well, when America are ready for it,
when they're ready to step up to the plate, you come see us.
we'll be
The
there.
equipment company is 100 billion turnover. 100 million. 100 billion.
What's that?
100 million turnover is our like-for-like competitor in the US. I think they've only been going, I could be wrong, about 7 or 8 years. But again, it helps with. To be fair to them, they haven't ridden investment like the way a lot of other companies would. But they've certainly packaged up what they do really, really well. They've taken investment, but it's almost just to supplement the rate of growth that they've already had.
It'll be interesting to see what we find out when we go to America.
It'll be interesting to see how those companies will do coming over to the UK as well.
Well, even big companies like IKEA have had like a lot of difficulty getting into places like India, haven't they? Because it's just they shop completely differently as well.
Yeah, do you see the program on it?
Yeah.
There was the concept shop, wasn't there, where you could browse, but basically, I think, was it buy online or they just weren't ready to open it?
You could browse,
people
but you couldn't buy.
get around the concept that there wasn't a.
Yeah, they
couldn't just purchase it there, and then there wasn't a price on it. They couldn't get around the idea that they couldn't just go in and take things away.
But they're used to like haggling a lot in India, apparently.
Yeah.
And so they're not used to like going in a shop and having a price on it. Even that's quite an alien concept to them. And so, even your big, massive company like IKEA struggle to go to different cultures and things like that.
Part of culture, like the big in the Middle East in general. Even when I did retail stuff, it's always the same, always haggling over price. Whereas over here, it's just culturally instilled that right, that's the price, and you might occasionally get the
Well, it's funny. It's like certain industries, certain things. It's acceptable to barter. So if you were buying a house, if you were buying a car, you'd probably barter on the price.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you'd be daft not to. Mm-hmm. You almost list something with bartering in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you'd never go in a supermarket and say, I'll give you £4 for this packet of biscuits instead of £5.
Yeah, like the biscuits aren't they aren't priced because they know you're going to come in and lowball them. Like they're not priced for that in mind.
But I guess it's interesting though that even large like Fortune 500 companies and stuff that have to negotiate cultural barrier to succeed in any given environment.
Yeah, it's like Elliot said there. Like if someone like IKEA can't go in and get it right first time, there's hope for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean,
I think we're doing
Going
okay
on.
with it so far.
so far it
Obviously,
seems like
we've not exactly tackled foreign language yet.
Yeah, but I mean, America.
Looking
When
at
we
the US, it seems, and this is what's confusing me a bit as well. Doesn't take much. Everyone's saying you need 10 million to even make a dent in America, or even like basically put any kind of foundations in America as a
is that
business.
what is that to do with operating?
I don't know where
costs
these
or
numbers come from.
Is that paid ads? Is that what
I
is
think
that?
people are talking getting an office established, getting key members of staff in and things, getting kind of some marketing in place. But we're doing fine doing it from over here.
It doesn't ring true putting a number on it like that as well for me.
It's just
Do you not feel that maybe that's an almost ethereal barrier for it's like to stop you even trying?
Mate,
yeah,
potentially.
potentially. I think
Someone's going, whoa, don't you guys bother with that, leave that. We'll sort that one.
Big job.
I think
Yeah.
people, a lot of
What sort of industry is this?
well, we're
in,
talking similar industries, similar digital companies.
Yeah.
But it somehow doesn't. Maybe
It
it's
doesn't
a
ring
different.
true,
Yeah,
innit?
maybe it's a different way of looking at things. Maybe it's a case of we're taking a business and we're going to establish it and accelerate it quickly over in say the US.
Yeah.
Whereas we look at things and go, what we're going to do is we're going to establish it and accelerate it from home base here in the UK because phone lines exist and internet exists.
Well, I imagine with certain investments as well, there'd be a prerequisite that you do these certain things. Like you hit this, you have a base out there, buy this with this many staff in, you have this, you have that.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense,
It just seems. I mean,
it makes a bit more.
in terms of the rate of wins that we're getting over in the US. I mean, we've got a similar conversion rate to what we have with UK clients.
Yeah.
And as long as we've got support, around the clock, I don't see an issue with it. Maybe it's some of the ones that are kind of offering a lot more kind of service support alongside the product.
Yeah, I think it's learning, isn't it, as well? Like, I imagine a lot of people throw money at a problem and let someone else figure out for them.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
we're quite determined to try and figure out for ourselves so we can kind of understand.
So we can throw money at ourselves.
Yes. But also so we can understand.
Oh yeah,
their
of course.
viewpoint,
So we can
their
understand different
viewpoint.
cultures.
Yeah.
We're running over.
48 minutes. That's a good chat.
So we've got 3 minutes left to talk about how Salesfire started.
So yeah, we
Talk
haven't
about the first question.
we haven't cleared question one there. So I think we might hold these questions till the next time we do an internal.
I knew we'd just go off on a random.
Yeah, that's a very fascinating tangent now.
Cool, yeah.
I can't wait for the documentary. Salesfire breaks into the US.
Start getting some B-roll.
Be like The Office.
You're gonna start. Be able to start a little vlog, like a true SaaS millionaire.
Be like the Blair Witch, wouldn't it?
It would be.
In here trying to man all the
camera like
phones.
that.
Yeah.
Found footage.
Elliot stood in the corner.
Just like snot dripping from your nose, you crying. It's all gone wrong. Should we do a sign off? Right, that's the end. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
And we'll be
Bye.
back next week. Oh, no, 2 weeks' time. Bye.